Hello and welcome to Timeless with Julie Hartman Live. It is Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. I'm Julie Hartman, and it is great, as always, to be with you. 844-861-5537 is the call-in number. 844-861-5537 is the call-in number. And as always, you can use the chat, which I have a direct line to right here, as long as you keep it classy. Boy, you guys, for the last few days, I have been watching for many hours at night the Democratic National Convention. And right now we are on day 3 of the DNC. It started on Monday and it ends tomorrow. We've seen speeches from Vice President Kamala Harris, the second gentleman, Douglas Emhoff. Last night we saw former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. We've been seeing some people who I don't recognize at all, but they have been providing a lot of entertainment for all of us. And so it is no surprise that that's what we are going to be focusing the episode on today. Some DNC recap. Now, of course, there are a lot of people who are doing DNC recap. And it's sort of interesting to look at various commentators and the lane that they are going down with regard to their analysis of the DNC. This morning, I was listening to Ben Shapiro, by the way, on 1.5 speed, which may make me a rare breed of my own, but I have stuff to do. You got to listen to Ben Shapiro sometimes on a higher speed. But I was listening to Ben Shapiro, and he was giving incredible analysis really about the economic implications of the Harris-Walz platform. So we can do a lot of those things. We can certainly do a lot of policy analysis. But today I want to talk more about culture. And I want to talk more about the ways that at least I see the Democratic Party platform today being, shall we say, a bit deceptive and being, shall we say, quite manipulative. But before we get to that, I want to shout out Sean McConnell in the producer's dungeon. Hello, Sean McConnell. Welcome, my dear.
Good day.
Good day. Good day to you. And Stanley Draper, who's saying good afternoon from Indiana. Hi, Stanley. Thanks so much for joining us. I'd be curious, for those of you who are joining us in the chat, though we are a listener and watch-friendly show. We're live right now on YouTube, but of course you can listen to it or watch it after on YouTube or on Apple and Spotify.
You had something else planned for today.
This is what he does. He just cuts me off.
And you pivoted, and I'm glad you did.
Yes, that's right.
To talk about this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you're good. I mean, that's why we bring on misinformation onto the program. Wow, we have someone from Maui. We got AP Unfiltered in the house. What's up, Aaron? Everyone should check out my show with Aaron Prager, who has a fantastic podcast of his own called AP Unfiltered. No space between the AP and Unfiltered. And yes, Shanzi, he is right that I thank you, in fact, for cutting me off so rudely. I did have a topic planned for today. I was going to do the show on Pope John Paul II because, Timeless, we're the random topic show at times. But really, this individual is someone who I deeply admire as a religious leader, but also irrespective of his role as a religious leader, as a person, as a leader in the world. He was instrumental in the collapse of the Iron Curtain. Excuse me. I'm having Kamala moments this morning where I'm not able to finish my words. He was instrumental, really, with the collapse of the Soviet Union. And right now, we're in this terrible moment in our country where we are really lacking for good role models, both on the right and on the left. And so, yes, I intended to do the show on JP2 today, and him really as an example of what I view to be the epitome of a leader. But we're going to kick that off to next week because we've got to focus today on some DNC recap.
He was one of the top 3 most influential people of the 20th century.
He was. He really was.
Queen Elizabeth, Pope John Paul, and
Margaret
Richard
Thatcher.
Simmons. Oh,
and
right.
Who was the one you said?
Richard Simmons.
No.
Do you not know who Richard Simmons is?
He's going to, I love this, yes. He's going to call me out right now on the air for not knowing who Richard Simmons is.
I'm just going to let that float out there for anyone who knows who he is. They're still laughing. Please continue.
I don't know who Richard Simmons is, but you know me. I'll do a show on Richard Simmons. I will look this man up, and then we can do a show on him if he is worth our time. Though also, by the way, recently on Timeless, I was talking about my 5 weeks in Europe, and I had mentioned Malta, which really, we can learn a lot from the leadership of Pope John Paul II, but we can also learn a lot from the history of various countries and what they've been through. And Malta is one of those countries. And our dear Shanzi mentioned on the air, which I did not know, that his grandfather served in the United States Army in Malta. And he gave me some reading material. So we'll be doing that. Maybe.
Navy.
Oh, Navy. I thought you said maybe. I'm like, maybe. I thought it was confirmed that he served. Navy. Thank you for that. Yes, we will follow up and do all of these shows. Someone's writing Richard Simmons, the fitness guy. Wow, that's cool. Some fitness guy was as big of a deal as Pope John Paul II. I doubt it. All right, let's talk about this DNC. So there are two main things I want to discuss with you today. The first is this how would I call it, discovery that I had watching the DNC, this thing that I caught behind the scenes that I want to talk to you about, because it actually reveals a lot about the relationship between the Democratic Party and the American people right now. And the second big thing I want to talk about is the manipulation of language that we have seen on display at the DNC. Now, of course, we're in the realm of politics. This is what politicians do, and this is what happens in the realm of politics. People, know what lands. They know what to talk about or not talk about. But as we're going to see, there were a lot of these terms that were just kind of thrown out there. For instance, Trump's Muslim ban, or book banning, or Trump's abortion ban. And that's not, choosing your words shrewdly in the realm of politics. That, to me, is outright deception. There was no ban that the Trump administration executed writ large on the international Muslim population. There was certainly no ban that the Trump administration passed on abortion. Roe v. Wade was overturned. This whole idea of book banning is hilarious because, as we have done on this show, I had Max Eden of the American Enterprise Institute on the show and who testified before Congress to talk about this. The right, overwhelmingly, is not banning books. Many on the right are putting restrictions on certain books to be shown to children. For instance, highly sexual content. But this was normal growing up. At least when I was in school, there was the elementary school section and then the middle school kids section. When you're a child, you should not be reading certain books that are out of your age range. So we've had people on the show to debunk these myths. But interestingly, the DNC, many of the speakers there just keep throwing out these terms because they know exactly what they're doing. They know that most Americans, and I don't blame them for this, do not have the time to unearth the truth. We're being funneled with so much information on cable news, on Twitter, on Instagram, on what are the other sites? Truths. I mean, we have all these sites and we have all these mechanisms of media, and it's really overwhelming. And people have to go to work. A lot of people don't have the luxury to do what I do all day, which is discover the truth. But what I hope to do is unearth the truth and tell it to you. Because it is not fair for people who are claiming to be representing us and our interests as the American people to be lying to us and manipulating us and talking about things that did not happen in order to scare the American population, that there's some draconian, existential, authoritarian, fascist threat posed by Donald Trump and MAGA conservatives. It is fundamentally morally wrong, and it is sick. So let's talk about what I discovered. This was fun. I'm sitting on my couch last night, watching the DNC. Sean, I know you were at work until what time? Like 7. So you didn't get to partake in the glory of watching the DNC for many hours.
I was here past that. But when I got home, I did watch it on YouTube. I watched Michelle and Barack, at least. I took those full speeches in.
Yeah. Okay, well, we should talk about that. If we have time today, Sean did mention that, I try to avoid him before the show so that we have spontaneity on the air, but he did in fact mention that he has some cuts of these speeches that the former president and the former first lady gave. So we will have to look at those if we have time. But I was sitting there while Sean was at work or not at work or whatever that guy does all day. And I noticed something. Senator Mark Kelly was on NBC News Now being interviewed. And behind him, because you're at a convention, I have not been to a convention, but I've been to Republican debates. I've been to these forums. It's kind of, you can bleep me, Sean, but it's kind of a shit show. I mean, there are people running around. There's teleprompters. There's the media. You know, you have someone like Matt Walsh, who we saw sneaking in. I mean, it's definitely chaos. And so they're filming the senator on NBC News, and there's a teleprompter behind him for the speaker that is currently speaking at the DNC. And yours truly caught something. Let's roll the tape.
What tape are we rolling?
What tape are we rolling? Okay. Oh, that's right. You know, this is funny. Welcome to the live show, everybody. Things go wrong all the time. What tape are we rolling? We are rolling video 2. So I'm watching on my couch, zoom into the teleprompter. Look at that. Look at that. It says, okay, we're not rolling that. We're not rolling that picture. Yes. Yes, Kamala. Yes. Do you see that, everyone? On the teleprompter behind the senator is the vice president's first name, spelled as Kamala.
Look at you.
Now, I work
Look at you.
Look at me. So wait, you guys, you're going to find this to be hilarious. I saw this. I was just watching. I think I was eating. I was doing some work. And I see this and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to get rid of this because, you know, NBC News Now isn't stupid. They're going to see that the teleprompter's behind and they're going to know what a big deal this is. So I ran across my apartment and I grabbed my phone and I actually hit my knee. And I'm not an impertinent host. I'm not going to raise my bare flesh out and show you my bruise. But mark my words, there is a bruise on my knee because I ran out to get the video. But this is actually, all jokes aside, really, really important. And it proves a greater point that time and time again I've made on this show, many conservatives, many liberals, many common sense, free-thinking people have made, which is that there are rules for thee and not for me in the Democratic Party. This is true on a policy level, and this is true on a cultural level. Let's show the second picture, or I guess it's picture 3 as labeled in my show notes. We know that the mainstream media, which is really the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party, has been very judgmental, shall we say, of people who mispronounce the vice president's name. Look, we've got 3 articles right here. This is just from a search result. What Trump is doing when he mispronounces, okay, see, I'm being serious right now. I swear on my life, I don't know the proper name to pronounce it. Is it Kamala?
It's easy.
Is it Kamala?
It's easy. Yes, like the punctuation. Kamala is the correct
It's Kamala. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not trying.
People say Kamala. That's not right.
Okay.
Kamala. It's Kamala.
It's Kamala. Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's important to pronounce people's names. I'm not trying to be shady, but I genuinely didn't know how to pronounce her name. And I think a lot of people don't know how to pronounce her name. For instance, my dear friend Morgan Goldman, who was on my show the other day, we did this really fun show about how we were both liberal and then we came to conservatism. She said to me off the air the other day, and I feel comfortable telling you that because she came on the show and I know she would feel comfortable with my saying this to you. She said to me off the air, I have no idea how to pronounce her name and no one I know does. And I'm like, yeah, me too. I'm sorry. You hear people saying Kamala, you hear people saying Kamala. Let's give people some grace. It's not always an insidious thing.
But the mainstream media was attacking the right, saying that it was almost borderline racist
That's
for not
right.
pronouncing it correctly.
That's right.
Yeah?
And that's what we can pull up that picture again. That's what we're seeing with many of these articles. How to say Kamala and why it makes a difference. All the RNC speakers who got Kamala Harris's name wrong. Now, these titles, I think, are fair. You know, they're actually, I'm going to retract that. They're kind of not. It's both. You know, I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to say it's important to pronounce someone's name right, but come on, let's all cut through the BS. We know what they are actually trying to do, which is to paint conservatives as racist for mispronouncing her name. And in fact, in many of the articles that I have read, they flat out say that, or they say something kind of cryptic where they're like, the president, former President Donald Trump continues to make, or continues to speak with racist undertones about Kamala. It's just, it's rules for thee and not for me. It's just like, if you need help pronouncing the name, then don't call us racist for not knowing how to pronounce the name. It's just as simple as that.
I think it's actually pronounced Donald Trump.
Well, many people are saying Kamila because I was going to call him my colleague, but he's not my colleague. I was going to call him my admirer, but I was going to say that I admired him. My favorite talk show host, Ben Shapiro, says they are really wooing the Soviet Union. That's why many people are calling Kamila. So look, that's a little bit shady. You know what people are trying to do there. But just genuinely not knowing how to pronounce her name, I don't think it always comes from a point of being racist. And again, at the risk of overstating it too much, it just shows that what many are doing in the Democratic Party, not everyone, but many, is that they are trying to weaponize, to use a apropos term, weaponize words, weaponize mispronunciation, and then it just seems totally unfair when they, in fact, are suffering from the same human thing of not knowing how to pronounce someone's name. So that's that. Before we go on, I want to tell you about two things which are just as important as knowing how to correctly pronounce a person's name. And that is buying gold and buying pillows and slippers and towels. But let's start with gold. We know that things are very economically volatile right now, and that's why it is a good time to tie your assets to something physical, something stable. Economists are warning us about massive tax hikes that could hit our IRAs and 401ks hard. With inflation rising and global uncertainty, politically and economically, it's no wonder central banks and many Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't thought about gold yet, now is the time, and you should consider trusting Priority Gold to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide and see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Right now, physical gold is one of the best ways to fortify your savings. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD to learn more. That's 1-800-405-GOLD. And in addition to gold, I have friends staying with me this week, so they can actually attest to this. They can call me out if I am misrepresenting this on the air, but I'm not. I use all my pillow products. I sleep on a MyPillow. I sleep on the Giza Dream bed sheets. I have MyPillow kitchen towel sets. I have MyPillow bath towel sets. I wear my slippers. They are excellent products, and you can get them right now at a massive discount. For instance, you can get the queen size premium MyPillow for only $19.98. The MyPillow is made with a patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual need regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned. It holds its shape all night long so that you can get the adequate sleep that you need and deserve. But that's not all. You can get their six-piece kitchen towel or bath towel sets for only $25. You can get a brand new mattress topper for as low as $69.98, and their famous MyPillow bed sheets, which I sleep on, for as low as $25, and so much more. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman to get big discounts on all MyPillow products, including, as I said, the premium queen size MyPillow for only $19.98. That is the lowest price ever. Don't delay, order today. Use the promo code Hartman, Hartman, at checkout. Okay, so we've settled the whole Kamala thing. So Ian James here, I appreciate your comment. Depends on where you are. You are both correct. Oh. In different parts of India. Oh, that's right.
I've heard this argument that she doesn't pronounce her name correctly because of the way it's said in India, but she says it Kamala. So we should say it the way she says it. It's her name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And, I actually had prepared a video of Nancy Mace, who is a United States representative from South Carolina, on CNN. And she gave this comment, which people are harping on, where she says, I can pronounce Kamala's name however way I want. For the sake of time, we won't play it. But I don't agree with that. I think that we should know the vice president's name. We should know the president's name. Names are important. I don't want to disrespect, I'm sincerely, Kamala Harris. I don't want to disrespect her. But when you live, on social media, for instance, I follow a lot of conservative commentators. A lot of them say Kamala. It sometimes just gets ingrained into you. And I just wish that they would give conservatives, there's some conservatives who are just being mean about it. I don't approve of those conservatives. But I wish that they would give people the same grace as they appear to give themselves by putting it on the teleprompter. But let's talk about the way more important thing than Kamala, and that is really kind of distortion and manipulation of reality in order to further the Democratic Party's agenda. And, by the way, I really, as a host, I try really so hard to be nuanced. And I'm not saying that every single speaker or every single thing that they said at the Democratic National Convention was manipulation and was lies. But a lot of it, I would put in the category of manipulation and lies, especially when it came to characterizing the record of former President Donald Trump. And as we talked about on Monday, this is a really big part of the Democratic Party position right now. It's not so much boosting up Kamala Harris as it is tearing down Donald Trump. Because, I don't know if all of us remember this, but up until about, a month ago, Kamala Harris was not the nominee. Let's roll video 1. This is a video from the George Stephanopoulos interview that now President Joe Biden did with George Stephanopoulos after that disastrous presidential debate just 6 weeks ago, where he said, "I'm the nominee, and I will only drop out if the Lord Almighty tells me to do so." Let's roll it.
In his first interview since last week's presidential debate, President Joe Biden was adamant. He believes he is still fit to be the Democratic nominee, and he is not dropping out of the race for president.
If the Lord Almighty came out and said, "Joe, get out of the race," I'll get out of the race. The Lord Almighty's not coming down.
This was just 5 weeks ago, everyone. You heard that. This was just 5 weeks ago. The Lord Almighty is not coming down. And so now that there was that big switcheroo where President Biden stepped down and Kamala Harris is now, I'm so sorry to be annoying. You know what I'm going to write? I am going to be a good host, and I am going to write on my notes, Kamala, in the same way that the teleprompter did it. Kamala Harris is now the nominee, and a lot of people were blindsided by that because they were expecting Joe Biden to be the nominee. And it makes sense now that really a lot of the Democratic Party platform, because this switch is so quick, they're focusing heavily on tearing down Trump. Because not only was the switch so quick that this is the new nominee, but also, up until about a month ago, Kamala Harris was seen as incredibly incompetent, including in her own party. Remember that? Now she's being elevated as joyful and, so competent, and she was a prosecutor and she went after criminals, but we weren't allowed to say that like 2 years ago. Now she's being elevated as this incredibly competent person. But up until about a month ago, people, including on the left, were circulating memes of her cackling and her being the Kamala Harris that we have seen in the White House for the past 3 years. And so they have to smear Trump.
The lowest approval rating of any vice president in history.
In history. Yes, exactly. And so they have to really, really focus. This is critically important. They have to focus intensely on Donald Trump's record because they cannot elevate Kamala Harris's record. So, in turn, they have to smear Donald Trump's record. Donald Trump, as we have discussed on the show, he says and does some terrible things. We all, on the right, those of us who are voting for him, we all wish that he would just shut up sometimes. He is his own worst enemy. But his record as president was astoundingly successful. He was astoundingly successful economically. He was astoundingly successful with regard to foreign policy. We've discussed this ad nauseum on the show. The Abraham Accords was a magnificent feat in the Middle East. He was excellent on economically sanctioning China, and also from a moral perspective, sanctioning those Chinese nationals who he saw with evidence were behind the massacre of the Uyghur Muslims. He was making us energy independent, which is fantastic, not just for us economically and domestically, but also internationally, for us to be a strong player on the world stage. He was very pro law enforcement. We had spectacular border control. I've talked about this, and during his years as president, roughly there were about 300,000 border crossings per year, which is a lot, but compared to, 2 million in 2021, during President Joe Biden's first time in office, we can see how much Donald Trump had control of our border. His record was absolutely excellent. And as we've also talked about, it wasn't even so much conservative or right wing as it was just common sense. People want a border. People want America to be strong on the world stage. People would like to keep the majority of the money that they earn. People would like to send their kids to schools and not worry that their kids are going to learn as they would learn in Oregon, according to their Department of Education, that finding one right answer in math is white supremacy. They want to send their kids to school and not have to worry, as happens in the state of California, that teachers are going to trans the kids. And if a teacher notifies a parent of the child's gender transition, then they may face a lawsuit from the state of California saying that they've discriminated against the child. This is not complicated stuff. It is a common sense record. But the Democratic Party has to make it look like this draconian, fascist, Handmaid's Tale-esque dystopia. Senator Chuck Schumer referred to the Donald Trump years as American carnage. American carnage? That is so dishonest. You can go after the former president. You can go after his policies. You can certainly go after his rhetoric, but American carnage? This is not healthy for us. This is fanning the flames of division, making us hate our neighbors, making us more polarized, more divided. Aren't these all the things that we don't want to be? And yet we have prominent leaders coming up and talking about the so-called 4 years of American carnage. But let's look at some of these examples, So this is really the playbook here, okay? And this is what I'm about to show you time after time in the DNC. I have noticed that there is a strategy of the Democratic Party coming up with these terms, these phrases: book banning, Muslim ban, abortion ban. And people, because they don't have the time to really, again, I don't begrudge them, really go and actually see if there is a Muslim ban, if there is an abortion ban. They start to, it's very actually emotionally strategic, start to internalize these slogans as the truth. And they start to really believe that Trump actually banned Muslims, just writ large Muslims, because they are Muslims, from coming into the country. And that's not true. I want to give two quick examples before we look at the DNC, just to really prove this point, because this is not new to the DNC right now. This has been a strategy for years of the Democratic Party. Let's go back, for instance, to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis's Don't Say Gay bill that he signed into law in 2022. We all have heard that, right? Oh my God, that horrible governor, Ron DeSantis, and the Don't Say Gay bill. Yeah, there's just one problem. Nowhere in that statute did it stipulate that teachers cannot say the word gay. It is dishonest and it is sick. It would be a truly sick thing if teachers were not allowed to say the word gay. That would be sick. That would not be fair to people in this country who really are gay. But the left loves to lie. So they call it the Don't Say Gay bill because they want to inculcate emotion. They want people to genuinely believe that Florida is a Handmaid's Tale-esque, gay-hating, homophobic, transphobic, haven where white nationalists who hate gay people can go persecute gay people. The only problem is it isn't true. I'm reading here from the statute. This is what the law says. It says, quote, that a person's sex is an immutable biological trait, and that it is false to ascribe to a person a pronoun that does not correspond to such person's sex. So essentially what that law does is it does not allow teachers to refer to children by the pronouns that they are not biologically born with. Now, you can disagree with that. You can vigorously disagree with that. But I think we can understand, by the way, I vigorously support that because I think what they're doing to kids in schools is truly deranged. I think taking a young, impressionable child who is forming themselves in the world and taking that blank slate of their minds and saying, hey, actually, you're a little boy, but you may not be a little boy. You may be a little girl, and you think you like girls, but you may like guys. That is deeply sick and confusing. If you're older and you become trans, okay, it's your life, cool. If you're gay, so what? But don't proselytize to the kids this stuff. They're kids. So the point is, you can vigorously agree or vigorously disagree with what the Florida statute says. But what is not a matter of disagreement is the fact that the bill does not anywhere tell you that you cannot say the word gay. That is objectively false. But we heard this. I heard it at the Democratic National Convention, this don't say gay bill. And then people who don't have time, I get it, to go and read the bill, genuinely believe that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is telling teachers to not say the word gay. We'll give another example, which was also repeated at the Democratic National Convention several times when I was watching. And that is the Charlottesville lie. Remember that terrible neo-Nazi rally in 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia, where people were carrying tiki torches and they were protesting the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue? That was a terrible day. But we know that afterwards, Donald Trump was talking about that. And he, in his Donald Trump, not always the most articulate or, coherent way, was giving his analysis of the Charlottesville rally. And he said that there were very fine people on both sides. Here's what he was talking about. He was talking about people irrespective of the neo-Nazis who were there protesting the removal of the statue. We on Timeless have done shows about statue removal. I think it's truly a fascinating thing because I get it. It's a tricky thing, our history. It's a tricky thing to have statues of Confederate leaders. It's hard as a nation because you want to preserve your history. You want people to know about evil, but there are statues of terrible people, which maybe you don't want up in your cities. It's not an easy issue. We've compared this issue to the Soviet statues in Berlin or the former, communist statues in places like Hungary, where I just went. It's a difficult thing. And at these rallies where, a statue like Robert E. Lee was being removed, we as Americans, we tend to think that, it's just neo-Nazis and then non-neo-Nazis. Many of us Americans don't have room for nuance. Yeah, neo-Nazis sometimes show up to those rallies. It's very rare, by the way. As Michael Knowles says, when they do show up, they're the size of a high school reunion. But, of course, neo-Nazis do sometimes show up. Anti-neo-Nazi people show up, and then a lot of other people show up. People who are along for the ride, want to take videos for Twitter, people who are irrespective of those groups and want to preserve the history. That would be someone like me. I would never show up to a rally, but I want to preserve the history of our statues. I think they should have a plaque, but I nevertheless want to keep them up. Then you get people who think that it's racist and want to tear them down. These rallies are filled with all different kinds of people. But of course, what President Joe Biden and his allies in the Democratic Party did was that they took a cut of President Donald Trump's wording and they made it look like he was glorifying neo-Nazis. And in fact, President Joe Biden said that this was the thing that made him run for president in 2020. And it's just a lie, a plain old lie. Let's watch this video from 5 years ago of Joe Biden when he's running for president talking about how this was the reason he ran for president. Oh, do I have to tell you the video number? Hold on, everybody. We're live. You get to see the behind the scenes.
Charlottesville is also home to a defining moment for this nation in the last few years.
You will not replace us!
It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as neo, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides?
President Joe Biden, my friends, just looked the American people in the camera and told a lie. He is trying to make it seem as though Donald Trump was saying that there were very fine neo-Nazis. Let me read to you the actual quote here. Quote, "You also had some very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group." He's talking about the group, the group of people who were opposing the tearing down of the Robert E. Lee statue for historical reasons. He said, quote, "You had people in that group who were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name." And then he goes on to be even more clear. He says, quote, "I am not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists. They should be condemned completely." So we know the playbook. Don't say gay bill. Nowhere in the bill does it say you can't say gay. Charlottesville rally. You just know it starts to inculcate all this emotion. Donald Trump's a neo-Nazi. He said there were very fine people. All the MAGA people are neo-Nazis, and it's just dishonest. So let's look at some examples of this. People who are joining us live, you really do get to see the behind the scenes. We're going to skip a video. I'll call out the numbers by name when we go to these. Let's look at the way that those at the DNC were talking about abortion. This is a picture. See, this is fun. Welcome, live chat people. It's the picture on abortion. Picture 9. This is a picture that I took from the DNC, and this was in a video that they were playing at the DNC, and it says, "Trump's ban prevented doctors from providing an emergency abortion." What is Trump's ban? Sean, do you know of Trump's ban on abortion? Did Donald Trump, hit his fist on the Oval Office desk and say, "I hereby decree that abortion is illegal"? That is such a lie. What happened was that Roe v. Wade, which is the Supreme Court case, passed in 1973, which gave a federal right to a woman's right to have an abortion. Various states, made different rulings about how many weeks that abortion could be obtained up until, but Roe v. Wade said that across the board, every single state must give a woman an abortion. What happened was in 2022, the Supreme Court, not Donald Trump, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and put it back to the states. How is that Trump's ban? It literally makes no sense. Now, of course, Donald Trump talks about, and he's very proud of this, that he put justices on the Supreme Court, conservative justices on the Supreme Court, who would rule, which really is constitutionally in accordance with the law, to overturn Roe v. Wade, because it really is a state's issue. It's not a federal issue. He talks about that. But in no universe did Donald Trump ban abortion. But we see, PragerU, I want to call him a colleague too. Remember, I almost called Ben Shapiro a colleague. My not colleague, but admirer, Will Witt at PragerU. He does these amazing videos where he goes out into the streets of Los Angeles and he interviews people and he asks them basic questions. He says, "Who was the first president of the United States?" Or "Where is the nation's capital?" And a lot of people just do not know basic answers to questions. I blame the American education system. I think that we have gravely miseducated our children. It's horrible. What are we teaching people in schools? No wonder, according to PISA, which is the Program for International Student Assessment, U.S. math scores are down 13 points from 2018. Meanwhile, other countries have had their math scores go up. Also, according to PISA, 66% of California children fail to meet national math and science standards. 57% can't read at grade levels. We have a crisis of education in this country where people don't know basic things. And I think the left is taking advantage of that, where they know that people, if they just don't know the name of the first president of the United States, they're certainly not going to know about Roe v. Wade and the intricacies of federal versus state law and the Supreme Court versus the power of the president. So they're taking advantage of it and lying to the American people. Let's look at, for another example of this, what Senator Chuck Schumer of the state of New York said about abortion.
This November, we can choose a brighter, a fairer, a freer future, or we can relive the dark night of Trump's American carnage. Republicans tend to care about freedom, but they voted no on a woman's right to choose.
What?
No to safeguard IVF. No to birth control. That is just a taste of their extreme agenda.
What Senator Schumer is referring to is that there was a bill that was proposed by the Democrats in Congress that would make abortion and IVF and birth control federally across all 50 states legal according to the ideas that the Democratic Party wanted. So I don't know the specifics of the bill. I read it a few weeks ago. I believe that we talked about it on the show, but truthfully, I don't remember what the specifics were. But as far as weeks, for instance. But, you know, the Democratic Party will propose a number of weeks that a woman, up until a woman can get an abortion. So perhaps in the bill it was 30 weeks. And Republicans wanted to vote against that, and many Republicans have different reasons for that. Some Republicans think that 30 weeks is too much. Some Republicans think that it's fine and it should go back to the states. You know, with regard to birth control, a lot of Republicans think that the federal government should not be en masse legislating on birth control, using our taxpayer money to fund birth control. But I just find it to be dishonest of Senator Schumer to talk about, you know, writ large, that the Republicans voted no on abortion. They voted no on birth control. They voted no on IVF. That is just not true. They voted no to certain stipulations. They voted no on the bill because they didn't agree with the bill. And this is how our Congress works. Then it goes back, it gets revised again. But it just makes it seem to the largely ignorant American population who are not keeping up to day-to-day politics, like Republicans just writ large said, never can a woman have an abortion. And that's dishonest. Let's look at the Muslim ban. Senator Schumer continues, and he says this term, Muslim ban.
And unfortunately, his prejudice goes in all directions. He fuels Islamophobia and issued a Muslim ban as president.
Okay, that is not true. President Donald Trump restricted travel for certain individuals from countries that are extremely hostile to the United States, like Iran. And so what the left has done is that they go, oh, it's a Muslim ban because Iran is a Muslim majority country. And so Trump is banning Muslims from coming into the United States. Why don't they call it a countries that want to destroy the United States ban? And by the way, Donald Trump didn't ban, you know, every single Iranian national, for instance, who wanted to come into the United States. But he put extra restrictions on the nationals from various countries that could travel to the U.S. And by the way, as someone who just went to Europe for 5 weeks, this is extremely normal. I was just traveling to, where did I go? 7 different countries. And every time I landed, and I was in the EU, but I was also outside of the EU where there is more stringent border control. And they have lines where if you're an American or if you're from the United Kingdom or if you're from XYZ country, you can go in this line. And if you're from other countries, you have to go in that line. Now, why do they do that? They do that because every country has different adversaries They have different allies, and they have to be more careful with nationals coming from certain countries that are hostile to them. And so this is a reality all around the world, but then when it's in America, it's somehow bigoted. And by the way, I know that's my favorite term on Timeless. We have a Dennis and Julie bingo. We should create a Timeless bingo. And by the way, the amount of times I say that would definitely be one of them. President Obama had a ban during his presidency. President Obama restricted travel from foreign nationals from countries like Syria and Lebanon, who were then our most principal adversaries. So when Trump does it, it's a Muslim ban. But when President Obama does it, it's good foreign policy protection. Speaking of the Obamas, former First Lady Michelle Obama, who looked amazing, let's just give her credit. She looked amazing. And she's a fantastic speaker. You know, I say that she has a real talent like Donald Trump. She knows how to speak directly to the people. But nevertheless, a woman I used to deeply admire was engaging in this game of throwing out these terms that she knows will confuse people and get people emotional because they don't know the actual facts. Here's the former First Lady talking about book banning.
Shutting down the Department of Education, banning our books, none of that will prepare our kids for the future. Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love. Look, that doesn't make anybody's life better.
Even that, you know, I highlighted the clip for the book banning part, but even what she said about demonizing children for being who they are, again, it's just another lie where I'm conservative. I work in the conservative media sphere. I'm friends with, not to brag, but some of the country's most prominent conservatives. I know the conservative mindset. And we don't care if a child is gay. It's ridiculous. We do care if a child is trans because we do believe that a child is not of the right mind to make decisions about their body. And the trans issue is obviously very separate because for a lot of human history, people have been gay. Up until very recently in human history, people have been trans. This is a very big concocted thing. I've done shows talking about Susan Stryker, who is the transgender founder of queer theory, who in 1980 wrote an essay about how the transgender body is, quote, a technological construction, a weapon against, quote, the nuclear family in the West. Go back to my episode on this. So this whole idea that, and Michelle, here's the thing, like, Michelle Obama knows this. I don't know how you feel about this, Sean, but I used to really admire Michelle Obama. I thought she had a good head on her shoulders. I loved, when I was young, former President Barack Obama. I loved them as people. I thought they were excellent leaders. I thought they were dignified. I thought they were articulate. I thought they were principled. And someone like the Michelle Obama that I thought I knew when I was 8, 9, and 10 years old, she would be the kind of woman who would step in there and go, wait a minute, if a child is, wanting to change their body, maybe we should wait until that child is 18 years old for them to change their body. Maybe we should slow this down a little bit. If the whole transgender movement is very recent in human history, maybe we should be prudent and cautious before we start giving people puberty blockers and getting people's breasts amputated and having them go by different pronouns that are deeply going to psychologically and emotionally change them. That's the Michelle Obama that I thought I knew when I was 8, 9, and 10 years old. But this Michelle Obama, it's so sad, is saying, oh, people are being demonized for who they are. That's just not true, and she knows it. Let's go on to another person who, boy, I feel like he was liar in chief of the night. This is the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, by the way, whose family is very, very prominent in funding many of the children's hospitals, such as at Duke University, who facilitate these child sexual transitions through puberty blockers and amputation. Let's watch what the governor of Illinois had to say.
Americans want the hope of giving birth through IVF, not the fear that it might be taken away. Americans with LGBTQ kids don't want them facing discrimination at school because the state sanctioned it. Americans want to go to their neighborhood grocery store and not have to worry about some random guy open carrying an AR-15. Americans don't want their kids to be taught in history class that slavery was a jobs program. And if Americans are black or brown, they want to get promoted at work without being derided as a DEI hire for the sin of being successful while not white.
Also, what's interesting about Governor Pritzker's speech is that in Senator Schumer's speech, he talked about how many of the new senators in the Senate are people of color. And then Senator Schumer said, "We're making the Senate look like America." And so that comment that he made had very little to do with merit. It was just skin color. But then Governor Pritzker is saying that people are being sort of judged for being DEI hires. But then within their own party, they talk about people not because of their merit, but because of their skin color. So it's just incredibly confusing. By the way, you know, the chat is really wonderful today. I regret that I haven't had more of a chance to look at it. Sean, I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but...
Yeah, I have. I'm also on my third Post-it note of things to say.
Okay.
I've been staying quiet.
In.
No, because we have limited time, and I want you to get through your stuff.
No, we're done. We're almost done.
I have so many thoughts.
We're almost done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut in, please.
So please.
No.
No, okay.
No,
right, well,
I'm the host, Sean. The floor is yours. And I'm a woman. I get to override you because I get to call you sexist if you don't.
I am so sick of politics.
Yeah.
I don't like these conventions on either side.
They suck.
The only thing worse than the narrative that's peddled are the people that eat it up and clap for it. The WWE has more truth in its script. People are sick and tired of working hard and not being represented. I've written down so many things. The play on emotion to fit dishonest narratives is tiring. It needs to stop.
Yeah.
I want a separation of emotions and politics.
Yes.
I want it to be more important to serve the people than to run.
Yep. I agree. It's very exhausting. And by
Career politicians, they brag about this. Oh, he served for 52 years. They said it about Kamala last night. She spent her whole life serving. That's not the point. That's not a good thing. Like these old politicians, they're so bought in that I don't even think a good person could get into politics and survive. They remind me of like old alcoholics who don't think anyone thinks they have a problem. Like Schumer just peddling his BS. We can't be dictated to by the fringe.
And
I'm
by
so
the
fed
way,
up with it all.
I don't mean to expose you, but this is coming from someone who did not vote for Donald Trump. Like Sean did not vote for Trump.
That's correct.
He doesn't like. I mean, I don't mean to speak for you, but he doesn't like Donald Trump. So this is a diverse show. This is an open-minded show. You know, we're just here for the truth. We're here for common sense. And yes, I agree. I mean, look, obviously Trump engages in his own rhetorical problems, which we discuss on this show. But this what I don't like about this is really the emotion and the fundamental dishonesty. Of course, politics is inherently emotional. You know, when Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or Republicans give speeches, what are they talking about? They're talking about crime. They're talking about people dying. They're talking about people overdosing on fentanyl. They're talking about, you know, very emotional issues, and Democrats should do that too. Okay, politics is emotion. I agree with you. Sean's gotten too emotional, but nevertheless, it is emotion. But the thing that I don't like about it is that when the former president is talking about fentanyl overdoses, and when he's talking about crime, and when he's talking about children being trans, and I'm sorry, I'm seeing someone in the chat who keeps saying, why do you keep bringing up this trans issue? Well, because it's important, and because it's being enshrined into law in the state of California, where I'm in right now. It is discrimination, according to the California Department of Education, for a teacher to notify a parent if that child has transitioned. That child needs help. That child needs talk therapy. It's discrimination to have a teacher notify a parent about something deeply tumultuous and personal that a child is going through. I think that's awful. In the state of Illinois, they're trying to amend the Abused and Neglected Child Reporting Act to change the definition of abuse, to say that abuse, an abusive parent is one whose children, or one who is, hold on. An abusive parent is one who denies his or her children gender-affirming care. This is mainstream. So Brady, with respect, I bring up the trans issue because it's being passed into law and children are being trans. So what I would ask you in return is, why do you downplay the trans issue? But the point is, forgive me, emotion. Emotion is real on both sides. What I don't like is the dishonesty. And this is the point that I'm trying to hammer home. The book banning thing is a lie. The Muslim ban is a lie. The Don't Say Gay bill is a lie. The Charlottesville rally, good people on both sides, Trump, loves the neo-Nazis, is a lie. This stuff is just dishonest.
They can't even be honest about the whole insulin thing. It's like Insulin-gate. Joe Biden's claiming that he's the one who capped insulin at $35. And then I saw Donald Trump on the Theo Von podcast saying he did it. I couldn't figure it out, so I went and looked it up myself. They both did it.
Yeah, I know.
Trump passed it, capped it at $35, and then Joe Biden expanded it through Medicare. Why can't we just be honest about this?
Yep, that's right.
It's insane.
That's right. Well, that's insane. But what's stabilizing is gold. On a timeless bingo, in addition to the by the ways, and I saw people referencing the bingo, we should do best and worst transitions into ad reads. Remember when Morgan was on, Sean, and you were like, Julie, what's Morgan's last name? And it was Goldman. And I'm like, please, I've already got that one. Okay, bad transition or not, seriously. When we got off of the gold standard in the United States, it was one of the worst economic moves we could have made, because it's really, really prudent to tie your assets to something physical. Something that is worth something now and will always be worth something, and that is gold. Economists are warning us about massive tax hikes that could hit our IRAs and 401ks hard. With inflation rising and global uncertainty, it's no wonder that central banks and many Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't thought about gold yet, now is the time, and you should consider trusting Priority Gold to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide and see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Physical gold is one of the best ways right now to fortify your savings. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. That's text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. Okay, we're going to end this show on some levity. And I'm not going to say, by the way, though, bingo. By the way, this show is not just politics. I make a real effort, and we've talked about this before, to be incredibly versatile outside of the political, because it's so easy to just watch this stuff all day. And I think it really corrodes us as a nation. It corrodes us as a people. And so I very much encourage you to check out my other episodes on handwriting analysis, on music, on the origin and development of language, on weddings, on funerals, on art and architecture, on food. I mean, I had Lydia Bastinich, the founder of Italy, on my show. Please do check out some of our other non-political episodes, because the political, I think, should be a very small part of us. But nevertheless, it is DNC week. So let's have some laughs about something weird. It's weird how much the DNC wants to paint the right as weird. They do these word tricks, and they're highly effective at it. But it seems that right now, they're really, really trying to use the word weird as the antidote to woke. Like, we on the right, or we common sense people, invented the word woke to talk about left-wingers, and they're trying to do this with weird. Let's first run the video 16 of the compilation.
The way they address people, it is bizarre. It's weird. It is weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird. They seem obsessed with this.
A
Super weird idea from J.D. Vance.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's quite weird.
They're just weird. More weird.
It's just plain weird.
Notice they're using it over and over and over. Nothing in politics is by accident. It's all games. It's all psychological, emotional games. And then we saw the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, whose videos I just played. And guess what? He chooses to use a very specific adjective.
Let's be clear. It's not woke that limits economic growth. It's weird.
I think that's so funny. I think he's just trying so hard. It's like a dad trying to make a joke that's relevant and totally failing. It's like, yeah, you're trying to make this weird thing the new woke, but you're just the weird ones, as AP Unfiltered is very astutely commenting in the chat. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Sean, I'm sorry that you couldn't cut in and say more, but we have many more shows for your Post-it notes.
Politics is fugly.
It is fugly. It's definitely fugly.
We didn't have time, but I took Obama's speech from last night, and I took out all the divisive rhetoric and just the good patriotic stuff and put it together. It's inspiring. It would make you cry. That's what makes him so eloquent and so dangerous, because he says things that everybody agrees with and then paints it as though only one side wants it.
That's right. Oh, as I was watching it, I had nostalgia. I thought it was inspiring. The Obamas are incredibly effective communicators. And as I've said many times, I used to admire them. But I'll end with a fantastic comment from, it looks like Shasta Rain. And this person is writing, "The truth has no agenda." And that really is kind of the thesis statement of my show. The truth is no agenda. I'm conservative. I want to conserve the principles of the American founding. But fundamentally, I just want to come to the truth, which is neither right nor left. It stands above all of us as an eternal force that all of us should endeavor. How should I end this in an Obama way? That all of us should endeavor to hope for.
That was really, really weird.
On that note, we'll see you next week. Timeless is live Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. You can check out Dennis and Julie every Sunday at that time. Take care, everyone. See you soon.